Hi, folks. Welcome back to the Snide Show. I am your host, Cornelius Edward Snyder, otherwise known out there as Corey the Curator. While there is a bevy of information out there on the internet about cannabis, it's hard to discern the fact from fiction. Plus, listening to fellow humans talk about something makes it easier to learn from than just walls of articles and memes. Thus, I'm sitting down with two of the coolest cannabis connoisseurs in my neck of the woods to dig into this dank discussion. Please introduce yourselves, folks.
Christopher Reese, owner of Berry Dance Market, Happy Skunk, promoter of cannabis education. What's up?
I'm Sarah Vogel Reese, no hyphen, as Chelsea Express would say, inspired. I'm also owner at Bear Dance and Gray Matters.
Awesome. So I would say so glad for you guys, to have you guys, but you guys actually having me. These folks here have also been helping me with a little bit of studio space here over in the Happy Skunk, which is part of their Bear Dance Market, just a stone's throw from my own home here in Christiansburg, Virginia. So how did you guys get into the Bear Dance Market business?
Completely
Luck.
by accident.
Luck.
Completely by accident.
Like so many things, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Sometimes the cards just don't align in the right way, and sometimes you get someone to take a risk on you that's a big risk, and yeah, we took it, ran with it, made it our own, and we are continuing to grow as best we can. I mean, it's been a hard year for everyone. I know that for just about every business, but we're doing it, and I only see things continuing to grow, especially as we head into this next new year. So
We were both like happy little hotheads on our own before we met each other, and I guess we had been dating maybe a year or two-ish, 2 years before the Bear Dance opportunity came up. So I like to tell people that we were business married before we were actually married, because we definitely made a commitment to each other when we decided to commit to this business together. Neither of us are quitters, so yeah, our talents, I think, perfectly complement each other for working together and what this brings has given.
Yeah, and just as a consumer and an observer, I can really vouch for all of that, seeing the way you two work together in this partnership that you guys have, and just watching this business grow has been really cool. Just again, from an observer standpoint, poking in every now and then for a bit of eggs, and that's the thing too. The market really is a market. While there is obviously the CBD angle of it, you guys really have like a good collection of goods there, and but obviously we're here to talk about the cannabis aspect. So you guys you sell CBD out the Bear Dance Market at a Hawaiian haze. It's lovely stuff. And I just, I want to know more about it, because again, there's just so much stuff out there. And
A lot of misinformation.
A lot of misinformation, absolutely. And even before the internet, which is where I gained a lot of my own knowledge of the green. I also started out smoking in trailer parks around here, and learning from the old heads and stuff who themselves learned from folks in like the 70s and stuff. There's just so much weird stuff out there. You guys want to talk a little bit about how you guys got into cannabis?
well, I was in high school and someone asked me if I wanted to get high.
Don't do drugs.
That's how that happened.
We all
Shout
know
out
theater
to
was
that
funny.
random spot in the woods by the duck pond at Virginia Tech. First time I smoked weed.
The duck pond, I love that.
Then I went to a high school football game, and yeah, I guess everyone probably knew I was high as a ball. But that being said, I'm 32 now, so I've basically been smoking half my life. I've seen dramatically both sides of the law. I've had my dealings with the law before cannabis was legal, and now that it's now that it's legal and we're progressing towards things, I'm able to do some things. Just leave it at that, because I'm not doing anything wrong that would have previously gotten me considered a criminal. So I think it's important to point that out, the duopoly of how things are, and also the fact that there are people sitting in Virginia jails and prisons right now with long-term marijuana sentences, and that is ridiculous. Let's get those people out. That's the only thing I'm not in that on is let's get those people out of jail. So.
I started a little bit later in my life. I started smoking in college. And for me, it was definitely an experience of like, oh, well, this makes me feel good, so I'm going to do it before everything. It makes everything more fun.
Yeah.
And that turned into obviously questioning, like, is this good for me? Like, surely this is bad. Like, this has to be bad for me because everybody says so, kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of my cannabis experience since then has been unlearning some of that scary stigma.
Yes.
And trying to share that with other people because makes me feel normal. What people describe when they go on pharmaceuticals is how cannabis makes me feel.
Yeah.
Pharmaceuticals have their place, of course, but when plant medicine can supplement and or replace that for people, that should definitely be something people have the freedom, the choice that they should be able to make themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, natural medicine versus the pharmaceutical, which maybe we can get into either on this episode or a future episode. Just sort of the strange.
Well, if you want to talk about drugs, we can talk about drugs.
yeah. The strange. What is it? Trying not to be too. Confrontation, but the conflict, I suppose, the conflict between those two industries. And it's, I don't know, going back to what you were saying about the stigma, it's kind of funny. I just from the people I've known and stuff, since cannabis has been legalized in Virginia, the paranoia levels have just gone down, like, and it's just kind of funny how that works, right?
It was a completely different experience before, like just even driving around with it in your car, for example. Like now I know that if it's in my truck, I'm good. Like it doesn't matter. Like as long as it's like I'm probably good. Yeah. Whereas before it's like every single time I went out and did something, I was risking my whole entire life, essentially. It's like,
do I smell like weed? Does this car smell like weed?
Now I just don't even care.
Yeah, folks, first thing out there, smell is not probable cause. So if anyone ever tries to
just slam the door in their face. You don't even have to be nice. They don't deserve it anyway. So just slam the door in the face and tell them fuck off and go get a warrant. And that's what you should do.
This is not legal advice.
That's my legal advice. Say fuck you, get a warrant.
In some verbiage, maybe not that verbiage, but absolutely, he's on something. So I myself.
Please, sir, you should obtain a warrant before you enter my house.
Yeah, just do it politely. And then
no, You gotta look him dead in the eye and just be like, get a warrant, slam the door. I mean, I would know it works. Like, just wink, you know, like, my 20s were wild.
We know.
Yeah, I love we have such a sort of like diversity of history here already with the cannabis history. You got the high school stoner, the college stoner, the white trash background stoner, and it's and it just goes to show you the whole culture. There's a lot more to it than what you see in on TV, like Cheech and Chong and stuff. I mean, all that stuff's funny. Don't get me wrong. That's where I started was sort of like the pop culture side of it. I was real into View Askew and the Kevin Smith stuff, the Jan Silent Bob stuff, and from there, Afro Man. From there, going back to like Cheech and Chong and stuff. I mean, actually, I do have vague memories of discovering my grandfather's Cheech and Chong records. He had like some of those records and stuff, but of course,
but you didn't know your grandfather was getting baked as fuck.
At some point, man, there was a bit of that hippie background, but I was too young to really get it. And then come later on, I'm going through a breakup. A couple of old heads, hooked me up with just brick weed joint, like just the little fibrous, like, yellow stuff, just like,
Oh, no.
it should not be smoked. It should not be smoked. And, like, did a joint of that and just watched an old episode of Family Guy as if I have never watched it before, and then from there, it was just love at first puff, some people it seems to agree with, some people it doesn't. There's some weird...
Yep.
And that's something I'd love to know more about, is just the sort of neurological aspect of it. Because for me, it was from there on, like, I became much less neurotic. I became like less germophobic. I became more social. I became just like less anxious as a person since I've had it.
I think a lot of it is walls, whether it be a wall you have personally against it, like as a stigma, or some people don't want to break down their wall and to dwell deeper or to possibly allow themselves to appear to be exposed. And when I say exposed, I don't mean like whoop. I mean like their true self, their true soul, how they truly act.
And it changes the way that you think about stuff, like, in the moment. And for me, it helps with the compartmentalization of, like, being able to turn off a narrative, like I get, like, the unwanted, like, recurring thoughts that, like, it's just like, okay, cool, like, yes, I acknowledge this, I would like to stop thinking about it now. And I wasn't able to do that on my own, like, until I started using cannabis. And now I can turn off that switch or turn it back on as needed, with or without cannabis. So, like, I no longer feel like cannabis is just a crutch for, like, me to, like, improve on something. It taught me how to, like, build up other practices, like with mental health.
Yeah, the therapeutic aspect of where it puts you in that state of mind. I've told people this before when they're like wigging out or whatever, like maybe, and I don't, I'm no mind reader, but I do think to Chris's point, there's a huge psychological aspect to it where maybe what it's making you anxious about is something you need to address. Like maybe whatever the impulsive thought is or the nerves or whatever, just explore why that is. And that early on in my shit, I got into a little bit of meditation stuff and smoke for that sort of purpose, and it led to like writing, and then from there it was like I always tried to associate THC with productivity in some essence, whether it's like cleaning or working, writing.
Oh yeah, same.
Something like that, so that there's sort of like a Pavlovian kind of response with it. And again, that goes back to the psychological aspect of it.
Even like way in the beginning, before I saw anything online about like intentionally and therapeutically using the plant or changing your habits, like I was also like on that flow. I was like, well, there's the stigma that stoners are lazy. Like, I'm not that, like, and I know that's not how it makes me feel. Thanks. Yeah, but I was like, that's definitely not me. So, like, what is actually going on here, and why does that happen for some people, I guess?
Yeah.
I think it opens to like ask the questions.
Yeah,
And
you gotta be willing to break down those walls, like Chris said. So, absolutely. So I guess this is a good way to segue into just the frequently asked questions. We both put some calls for questions out there. If you've got some other questions, or if it's, we'll start here, like maybe trade or something. But the first thing I got, and this goes back to cannabis not just as a psychoactive, which is a big part of the plant, obviously, in our culture, but also just the textile purposes of like hemp, just the non-psychoactive, raw, just that fucking fiber shit. Is it a better alternative for textile? Is it better for soil? Is it like, is that myth true?
Yeah, I definitely think so. There's some clothing brands that I've started following, so I would love to find one that I can afford to.
Some of the big boys are doing it now.
Yeah.
Some of like, I'm pretty sure like Levi's, shout out Levi's, because they're a cool company. They already have like a little bit of an initiative towards sustainability by telling people that you don't have to wash your jeans every time you wear them. Like, in fact, the owner of the company says like wash them after like 5 to 7 uses. So they've also moved to having some hemp products, and the fiber is much stronger. It's much more cheap to produce.
Apparently, it gets softer as you wash it more. Yeah. So, like, the quality actually kind of improves over time. Like, whereas with most clothes, just get worn out. Apparently, like when you wear into the hemp fibers,
just longer lasting, and definitely in terms of like the amount of land used, you could definitely do a lot more with a smaller plot of hemp compared to cotton or whatever is an alternative.
Yeah, that's a big testament, an endorsement from Levi's. That's huge for them to be like,
I'm pretty sure it's Levi's. You can double check me if I'm wrong later, but
yeah, we'll just like drop your audio or any of our audio when we say Levi's, and just like I'll ADR in like mud jeans.
I definitely don't think it was them, but good idea.
Well, the fact that big companies, the fact that big corporations are now exercising that possibility is a big testament.
I unfortunately don't think that the industry will be able to catch up and make that a more mainstream thing until some of those bigger companies get on, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because that's been the struggle for, I mean, that's why all the smaller brands are so expensive. I can't justify carrying something in my store where, like, per item, it's just a price tag I would never pay for one article of clothing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I know that I wouldn't be able to sell it here in Christiansburg. But I feel like the cost is going to come down for some of those smaller brands until it becomes a more popular item.
Yeah.
I mean, the market dictates what's going to happen. People vote every day with their dollars, so we'll see. But the benefits are definitely there and evident to most people that look into it or that are interested in it. So, yeah, I mean, on to, in my mind, like hemp-based plastics, hempcrete, things of that nature. We're going to see some really cool stuff starting to happen from those industries. I got a little concept cooking up in my brain that we could talk about off the air.
Yeah.
But it involves some of these newer hemp materials, and I've got a pretty cool idea, and I hope that it works out. But yeah, it's really interesting to see some of these larger companies, construction companies, choosing to build with hempcrete and things of that nature, because, like I said, as far as sustainability goes, it's way more sustainable for the environment, and it's stronger than your typical concrete. And, you don't necessarily have to worry about steel beams and this, that, and the other in certain cases, in which case, there's toxic fumes being produced that are released into the air while making these various metal objects and whatnot. So it's just interesting to think about the environmental impact that switching to more hemp-based products could create.
I think it's supposed to be safer as well. I think it's supposed to be resistant to stuff like mold, which is a huge problem. House builder, homeowner. Stuff like that really could make a huge difference in available housing.
That's one of the coolest aspects, I think, of hemp, and it's something I've looked into here and there, just with, experimenting at home with mixtures and stuff, and just like the antimicrobial, antifungal like aspects of hemp. It's there's a reason why it does kind of have this stereotype right now of being this miracle, textile, fascinating stuff.
I would almost argue that it is miracle. That is my personal opinion. And I mean, a lot of people say that they're like, I'm hesitant to call it a miracle drug, but because that's really what it feels like. It feels like it just can solve so many problems. And I mean, connecting to the point about that, like THC is not for everyone. I do think that that's true, and I think that potentially CBD is for everyone. I feel like anyone can benefit from CBD, even if it's just occasionally or a topical or something.
Yeah, right on.
So I'm going to blow your mind a little bit.
Please, that's why we're here.
I have this theory that since we as humans were using cannabis and hemp longer than I could even know, I'd really love to see some of the carbon data from hemp and cannabis found in various tombs around the world and see truly how old it was. But I think that some of these issues, be it neurological or depression or what have you, that marijuana or cannabis hemp tends to help with is because we used it for thousands of years, and then all of a sudden our government wouldn't allow us to have it for quite a while.
Sucked out like a vacuum.
So I'm not saying that's the sole cause, but by not having cannabinoids in your body, I think that may have contributed to the rise in some of these certain diseases, disorders, and ailments that people have.
Even if people weren't like directly consuming cannabis, it was fed to livestock.
Yeah,
it was just
exactly.
used in everything.
Yes. Oh man, yeah, and it does blow my mind because like it's touching on some things I've wondered before, like how funny is it that you have these things like epilepsy and stuff that like they found like helps, and then so you wonder. I've wondered that myself, and then it's interesting that connects to stone ape hypothesis. Yeah. Like that, which they have found like physical evidence for, like in like this is I'm getting into the weeds on this one because I can't like specifically cite where, but I think it was like in Sumeria or something, or somewhere in North Africa they found like old pots of like honey fermented with like things like psilocybin mushrooms and cannabis, and it was like they think like maybe we evolved with this, like like I love that theory, and I think there really is a lot to it.
I mean, there's even other substances that are like more unique and rare and like only available to like, this one tribe in like a super isolated place. And they have rituals all around like these plants they've been using forever. And they're, they don't have technology. Like they're not a part of the rest of the world. They're completely isolated. But even they have been doing this for like all of time.
There's all kinds of psychedelic plants that tend to show up in places where there are indigenous peoples, and most people don't know anything about. I've done some research on some of them and some of these ceremonies, and I'm blanking on the name of one of the plants right now, but they basically send these young men out, and they're given the concoction, and they basically go out in the woods and trip balls for like 5 to 7 days, and they're supposed to come back a new person or a man.
They have some more elegant vocabulary for the experience that we would call tripping balls.
Well, I mean, yes, but it is what it is.
What happened. I mean, this is like getting into murkier water, but some people even think that a lot of religious experiences may or may not be influenced by plants.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I love that theory too. Like Moses' burning bush, like perhaps that was, some sort of the acacia or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, why was Jesus anointed with hemp oil in the Bible if we didn't already know at that time that cannabis was a good thing?
Man.
Like, and you have a lot of people that are I guess the proper way to say this would be that identify with being very religious, that have a stigma against cannabis. But
that's a more recent phenomenon.
But it's in the Bible. All of the three Abrahamic religions are more or less interconnected. So I truly think that the plant is a sacrament. And I mean, I've always told people, don't think too much about it. It's meant to be set on fire.
Oh, I love that line. Definitely clip that. That's a good line. And I love that. It's such a good point. And going back to what you mentioned, Sarah, that sort of the stigma, especially like sort of in evangelical circles against cannabis, is very new, and it's funny, and this goes back to like why we're saying cannabis more than marijuana, which I'm not one to like police anyone's speech or anything, but it's just there is sort of this marijuana is like behind the sort of stigma, right? That word.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Americans started using marijuana as the primary name back when, Harry Anslinger decided to almost single-handedly start the war on drugs and used the word marijuana for the plant as a way to target immigrants who were seen as lesser than. So it definitely has a negative connotation to it. And whether or not you even agree with that agenda, I think that using the botanical term for the plant, cannabis, also just subliminally like changes your own personal perception of the plant. I definitely feel like when we made the choice to start saying cannabis instead, it sounds more medical. It feels more like a medical term as opposed to like a drug. Even though we're talking about the same exact thing. And it's silly, but like a small detail like that really can make a difference, especially when you're talking to new people who are just becoming more open-minded.
Yes, yeah.
And just a point about like the religious part of it too. I think our comments are certainly not intended to discredit at all like people's religious experiences. I think that just it's potential that some of those traditions and like hemp as just like a part of culture probably just kind of got lost in translation. Just like you don't necessarily hear them talking about any other essential oils like in religion, but people definitely used them. So people used all kinds of medicines and chemicals and strategies and so many things about culture are not in our religious texts. So definitely.
That's a very, very good point. And it's funny because the campaign against marijuana is just so funny because, like, you know, you have farmers at the time who are, like, smoking cannabis and they're like, oh, this marijuana shit I hear about is real scary. Like, people go crazy on marijuana. Whoa. And they had no idea until, like, you know, it was kind of too late. Like, oh, that's what they were talking about. Like, I guess.
I don't think I had heard that before. But yeah, I mean, that was just kind of the beginning of basically using misinformation to try to like change the way people saw a substance and groups of people. And that was only maybe 100 years ago or so. And all of the damage that has caused in a short amount of time, it's pretty shocking.
It is.
And and those people are still in jail. So
Bananas.
Yeah.
Bananas. So we've talked, you know, we've gotten into a little bit of the difference between hemp and cannabis. Is there any more you can add to just on that distinction?
Well, in order for let me rewind a second. So, if you're going to be a hemp grower in the state of Virginia, you have to obtain pre-approved clones or seeds.
Whoa.
I believe, don't quote me 100%, I know you have to get clones.
It's difficult.
But you have to make sure that you're getting something that's already approved by the state, that's not going to have elevated THC levels. And it's even though things are legal in the state of Virginia right now, we're still seeing a lot of just kind of silly red tape, and that's been hindering the market already. Let's be honest, if the state really wanted to, there could have already have been a retail marijuana infrastructure. And I'm saying marijuana because I'm talking about the state, because that's what they
that's
call
how
it.
they see it, yeah.
But, yeah, man, we're just going into the new year. We're going into 2023. There's going to be bills hitting the House floor. Hopefully we see things make it out of committee to the floor to the Senate, and maybe, just maybe, our governor will do the right thing and go ahead and make it so it's not incredibly hard to obtain the licenses needed to enter the industry.
Yeah.
We're really just hoping that they don't go crazy with the amount of money that they're asking for these permits, because that would prohibit people like us from getting in the market.
Mm-hmm.
Now, could we raise those funds if we're talking about 6 to 7 figures? Yes, but do I really want to be responsible for another person's 6 to 7 figures? I'm not sure. So we're just going to have to wait and see how things go and just continue doing what we're good at. And hopefully we have that opportunity to be the people to provide people with relief from their ailments.
Yeah.
And facilitating other people also having success is definitely a big part of the cannabis industry as well. Just wanted to shout out Dave at Groundworks for coming to that Cannabis Control Authority meeting not because anything Cannabis Control Authority has to do will affect a grow or like hydroponics shop at all. Like, he's not interested in getting into the recreational business. Like, he likes doing grow store stuff. But he cares because of the issue of the hemp market not being hospitable enough. Like, the reason that there aren't more people growing for fiber and growing for textiles, the reason we can't catch up is because it's too complicated. The barrier for entry, even to do that, is too difficult. So there really does need to be like a better distinction in every state between like the medicinal plant and the industrial part of the plant, because they are completely different things, and that's going to continue to be a hindrance for a lot of people.
That's a slippery slope for me, though, because at what point do you start adding in other distinctions? Like, do you want to like set a limitation for what's medical versus quote unquote recreational?
Mm-hmm.
So a framework like that in my mind just opens the door to more regulation. And while I want regulation, I don't want over-regulation.
Agreed.
I'm totally okay to do whatever the state needs, but it's got to be logical, and it's got to be fair for everyone that's in this market and is trying to live their own part of the American dream and continue paying old man Sam his taxes, you know.
Right. We all just like what we do, and we're passionate about it. And it helps people. So.
Dig that.
But you can see how it can be.
Our tax money. We're ready for legalization. Just take it. You already take it anyway, so take some more and let's get rolling, Virginia.
Yeah, we can generate.
Come on,
money.
Youngkin.
Yeah.
Youngkin, if you see this, or one of your like little staffers or whatever, your little butt buddies, do it. Come on, let's get this crap done.
Yeah, because it's silly. The hair splitting with it is silly. For me, I think it should just be cut and dry. Here's the little percentage for them, and then just let it go. Let it go from there.
Just let it be a free market, more or less. You need regulation on the end products that get to a person, just like with every other industry. Mm-hmm. But
make sure people aren't smoking bug spray, and aside from that,
the infrastructure could be very, very similar to like the system for monitoring alcohol production, but it would probably be a little bit less restrictive, I do.
Sure, because that's a poison.
Yeah, exactly. And the limit on like retail alcohol stores in Virginia is way too few. If they were going to base the number of recreational pot stores off of the number of ABC stores in Virginia, we would probably not be very well off. That would not be enough. That would not be enough competition.
Exactly. It's somewhere in the 400 to 500 range, if I'm not mistaken. So
it's just not enough for a competitive market. It's enough to maybe like theoretically provide to a number of people in a population, but
you got to think about like what that would look like too. Like, are we gonna have like a bigger city like Richmond, for example? Are they gonna have like, I don't know, let's just say for shits and giggles, like are they gonna have like 50 of like the 400 permits because they're a populous center?
Sure. And then how do you choose who?
What does that leave the smaller parts of the state with? Like,
less resources as usual.
Well, I mean, we don't know any of this, but this is just a point that I like to bring up because these are the kind of points that I would bring up if I was talking to the Cannabis Control Authority or whoever.
Points that you did actually bring up when we were talking to the Cannabis Control Authority.
So, it's been really difficult, and like Corey said, it's kind of like picking at hairs, and that's what the whole last year has looked like to me. And we're just hoping that a bill that makes sense makes it through, because if not, you might see Virginia being owned by basically the medical dispensary side of things, the retail side, and that would not be fun for anyone because I don't even want to smoke that crap. Like, that flower, like, hey, dispensaries, why is your bud so wet and machine trimmed, tumble trimmed, still has leaves on it? Like, why?
It's not cute.
Why?
It's not cute at all.
Yeah, it's garbage. It's
Have you heard of curing? Like, y'all got billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Like, can you cure your flower, please? Thanks.
And that's part of like the who gets to do it. Just because certain companies have more money doesn't mean that they're going to produce the best products. You really need diversity.
That just
to
means
be
they have
allowed.
the biggest greenhouse or warehouse where a couple of chads are growing some mediocre flower that is sold for top tier prices.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
predatory, man. Like the people that are going to these dispensaries, we do not have retail infrastructure. So there are people with medical conditions, legitimate medical conditions, cancer, epilepsy, and they're paying $60 an eighth or more
For some shit.
for trash, and that is predatory. Like it
We
I
refuse to
just-
hide like being upset about that, and I this is our personal opinion. Again, this is not like us necessarily representing our brand. This is our opinion. It is not good enough quality, and it's not serving the people of Virginia. Or of any state for that matter, because the same thing has happened in other states.
Yes.
It's all controlled by corporations. It's super overpriced, and that's just not accessible. Yeah, I mean, you know that they're making money handed with this, like off
Yeah.
that stuff.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
their profit is crazy. They're just putting it away, and I mean, but every business has to do that. But you know, it could be so much more accessible than it is right now. It's the accessibility that we have now is obviously a step in the right direction, but it's just not enough.
No, like you said, there's not enough competition, which competition ensures that people are striving to put out a good product.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big thing. Like when I first started going to, we won't name any names, but the dispensary around here, and then doing like a little background check, and like, oh, it's all owned by the same fucking company. Like it's all owned by the same company.
Shout out to Dharma and all of those jerks.
Bleep that now. No, just kidding.
Again, it's our personal opinion, like that corporate cannabis is not doing anybody any favors. That's nothing new or revolutionary. I mean, we're not the first ones to say this. Like, we got this information from other people. Like, but as people who we've made it our job to serve our customers. Our philosophy in the store is if we don't like it, we don't carry it. Because us as people, we're standing there in front of a shelf of products and someone's looking for what's going to work best. I can't justifiably sell you something that I don't completely stand behind. I would go out of business if I had stuff on my shelf that I didn't like because I'm the only one there selling the shit. So you're not going to find that kind of passion from everyone.
I respect it, and for real though, like you shouldn't be afraid to be honest about like brands and companies and stuff. That's that's what the marketing
unfortunately,
stuff.
you do have
Don't
to be a
bleep
little.
it, but put like some gunshots in there, like shots fired.
Just keeping it real.
For real.
I mean, this is all just from the dome. Nothing personal or anything about any of these
people come in and ask
companies,
us, like,
anything.
Why is it like this? Like, why is my experience? Like, I kind of had not a great experience. Like, why is this happening? Like, I thought everything was cool now. I mean, we get that every day, coming from many different perspectives.
The just really is that there are both sides of the quote unquote like political spectrum that are doing their own fair fair bit to harm legalizing it.
Yeah.
You know,
Everyone's trying to keep
Biden and Harris said they didn't have time to mess around dealing with legalization at the very beginning of the term.
It's 2 weeks within like taking office that they backed out on those campaign promises.
You know, I don't know if I'll keep this part, but you know, looking at Harris's track record, like, you know, she obviously like
prosecuted a ton of people. There's people that are in jail because we're still.
It's just two-faced. I mean, like that's not even like politically like we could make that comment and be literally any like political affiliation because it's perfectly reasonable to be upset with politicians for not being authentic because that's kind of like their whole thing. Like every one of them is going to try to pretend like they're in it for your best interest.
You're just going to have to put in one of those little like 1, 2, 3 countdowns. It's going to be like beep, political shit, and then like cuts back to right about now.
I'll throw the hot button. Hot button. Yeah. And I mean, I'm with you. And again, this is just going back to, you know, conversations we've had before. I mean, this is obviously a place like where many different people can agree on like this, you know, topic, this conflict, like, and just the whole war on drugs and how stupid and silly and how much it fucked up areas like this, you know, it's,
If you can kind of, it depends on who you're talking to. I mean, because you're right, we do talk to, like, people from all sides of the political spectrum. And even on some of the social injustice stuff, like, certain people who are very traditional conservative, they're not going to want to hear, like, parts of what it is that we talk about all the time, but the main point, which is basically a human rights issue, pretty much everyone can get behind, and accessibility is that's a human.
And from a conservative point of view, doesn't it all waste a whole lot of money? Doesn't it always just, you know, from a
most people recognize we have way bigger problems than this one, and now that also like other countries that have become more progressive with cannabis, nothing bad has happened. If anything, good things are happening statistically. So it's just becoming a lot more difficult for people to be against cannabis.
Yeah. So we've gotten into the legality of the cannabis topic. We've gotten into you know, the differences in like hemp and cannabis and textiles and stuff like that. Is there really a difference, going back to just the heart of it all, like a difference between sativa, indica, and hybrid bud? Like, is it really that big of a thing?
Some people, if like at one event we were having here, like I was trying to share a bowl that I had packed, and I was like, well, what is that? Because I can't do sativa. Like, it'll have me like panicking until like, no, like I won't be able to go to sleep tonight, kind of thing. So it does actually matter.
It's definitely like a lot about the terpenes. The terpenes are really what help stay in the different effects that you see in regards to whether something is indica dominant, sativa dominant, hybrid dominant. One thing that I've been told by some larger growers, it's harder to grow a large indoor CBD crop as opposed to indicas or hybrids. Now, I could be wrong, because I am, and I'm not perfect, but that's why you do tend to see more hybrids than straight leaning sativas. I'm kind of more of an indica and hybrid guy myself. Kind of like the just sit back on the couch, relax. That's how I unwind and deal with some of my pain issues I have with my back problems. So that's my cup of tea is the hybrids and the indicas, but everyone's different. Like Sarah said, some people don't react well with sativas because it gets them too in their head or they're too quote unquote energized. For me, it's none of that. I'm not opposed to sativas. I enjoy a good sativa now and then, but like I said, it's kind of harder to get some of those higher level sativa plants, in my opinion, from anecdotal experience, both in the open world and at dispensaries throughout the country. So
I could see that because it's the thing you see the least of on the shelf. Like most of the time, there's only ever like one or two straight sativas.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I go. Like at least in the daytime, that's where I go for.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it just goes back to just the complexity of how people use the plant or receive the plant. Because I fucking thrive off that shit.
Yeah. I like accidentally like fell in love with one of the part strains that we have because there was a bunch extra of like the banana cream, so I was like, okay, well I'll take that one for myself. Like I kind of like any of them, so I tried that and like the next like couple days, so productive during the day. I was like, what is happening? Like I feel so like I feel so clear right now. Like I don't understand what this is. Like, but I'm gonna roll with it.
For whatever reason, I feel like lately in like the last couple of years since it's been legal in the state, I feel like more people are seeking out sativas. I don't necessarily know why, if they're just looking for like that effect or whatnot, but
not being sleepy or couch locked.
I think some of the recreational market, especially like sativas a little more because they're not I guess you would say on your ass. They kind of like want to be experiencing like the giggles and the that kind of thing. So I feel like that's another reason why you see less sativas on shelves is because there is that certain demand for it, especially from your more non-medical smokers, but everything's personal preference. Like I said, I'm an indica fan. Go indica.
You're all drawing like a lot of really good distinctions here.
We get a lot of the same or very similar questions all the time, and what's funny is people are always like, I have a stupid question. I'm just like, there's really no such thing. Like, I've literally heard it all. And I think the only time I ever feel frustrated is when people kind of act like they know more than you do while they're asking for your help and they like won't let you talk. Because I can help solve your problem if you just like, let me figure it out, like what it is you're trying to do, like what your end goal is, and then like I will help you. Like
the thing that gets me are people that want to do their own kitchen extractions in order to basically make products we already have in the store. I just find it funny. I mean, it's cool to learn something and to know how it's done, but oftentimes people end up spending way more money by trying to do their at-home project and coming out with a coming out with a inferior product and wasting
and I think
your
that's
time.
The concern is they think that like maybe they can do it better if they do it themselves, and in some cases with some brands that may definitely be the case. But when people are trying to have that conversation with us, we're just kind of like, everything we have like is so much better than anything you can do at home. And again, I completely support like people doing that stuff on their own if they want to. But sometimes when people are asking me to like come do chemistry math for them, I'm just kind of like, I can't do that for you. Like, I would have to charge you for like consulting per hour or something. Like if I was gonna like start like trying to help you with your recipe, like I'm just not. That's not our job. Like I can't do that. But legitimately, that people do charge per hour for that kind of thing. So like, why would I sit there for hours trying to help someone figure something out when like it's just
that's the thing.
Yeah, I can make it so much easier for you if you come to me for what I do.
Exactly.
Yeah, no stupid questions for the most part.
Because it's all like this, and all of this is to the point of like it's alchemy. This is all alchemy.
It is. Mm-hmm. It's literal sorcery and like magic. Like as far as I'm concerned, I think I've seen that go around a little bit the past couple of weeks. Actually, is people like saying like, "Oh, my goal in 2023 is to believe in magic more," and I was like, and that actually kind of like hits home for me. Like I remember
go down to Bear Dance Market.
I remember as a kid being like obsessed with like fantasy and magic and stuff like that, and like wishing it was real. But it literally is. Like all those stories are based off of real stuff. It's just slightly exaggerated.
Going back to the hemp oils
and creating an experience for people, which is magical.
You know, the alchemist was the person who could, and they didn't know, you know, the chemistry. Now we have the chemistry, and we can get down to just the precise temperatures where you can activate these different compounds. And at the time, it was a lot of guesswork, and it might as well have been magic. And it is, like you said, it is magic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you want to talk about magic and chemistry. Every cannabinoid is in some way a derivation of CBG. It's known as the God cannabinoid. So it's pretty interesting that all these naturally occurring substances and some semi-synthetic substances are a manipulation of one molecule.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Yeah, because that goes into one of my questions I got here in a little bit, but real quick, just kind of these weird, we talked about like cannabis and self-medication, cannabis and productivity and these different uses, and I think both of these go well with these two myths. One, that cannabis kills brain cells, and another, that cannabis makes you lazy. And why do you think people have those stereotypes or this mythology?
I think it's more about the person, to be totally honest with you. A lot of people are lazy and look for something to blame it on.
That is true. Does happen.
I don't think that's a testament to the plan. I think that's very much situational and how people choose to live their lives. I take a dab before I go to work every day. So,
I mean, the couch lock can definitely be a thing, but it's just a symptom of like using cannabis. It doesn't necessarily like lead to like defined laziness, in my opinion.
Sure.
Laziness is just something that can happen to anybody.
Yeah, I've known plenty of lazy people who are couch locked and they've never smoked weed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And just unmotivated. I mean, I think that's one of the better words for it. Is I think THC is motivating for certain brain types. It's stimulating for certain brain types. It kind of helps open up your mind to being more creative. So, and I've even read that like, and I would love to know like who cannabis does actually work for, like scientifically, because and we're not going to know until we can actually do studies, but there's got to be some sort of correlation between certain types of individuals and like kinds of cannabis that work for them or don't, or whether cannabis works for them at all, because some people just completely panic no matter what. So I mean, I wish we knew.
I can't wait to know that. I was wondering if you might bring up, because I do know in this, I've seen in documentaries, and I can't, specifically cite, but there was some study, like in like the 40s or something like that. I think it was like an army study where they said cannabis kills brain cells, but what they did was they trapped mice in these plastic boxes. Did you ever see this?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And they just pumped smoke in there constantly, and like what it probably was just carbon
Suffocating
monoxide.
their brain, yeah.
So it's one of those crazy studies that they always keep back to. And yeah, it's but yeah, and there's just if you look into it, there's all sorts of stuff like this, like the mythology being connected with just these old studies and stuff, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the campaign against cannabis early on.
I think that's purely like mostly a social like thing, just a social construct created by the fact that being racist was profitable. So making a certain group of people seem lazy or unhinged or crazy as a result of that plant was profitable for another group of people at a certain time. And unfortunately, I think that really just like infiltrated the minds of people. I mean, again, like I said earlier, even my perception of it has changed over time. I used to question, like, surely this has be bad, but it's just not. Mostly a social issue, I think.
All right. So I got three questions here left, and a couple of them will lead into just the final thing, which Chris talked about a little bit. So early on, when I started smoking, there was a big thing that smoking out of aluminum or metal gives you brain damage. Have you guys ever heard that?
I mean, I've heard that myth and or theory, however you would like to put it, but I mean, it's probably not good to be inhaling metals, period, anyways. That's we're pretty anal about what we do carry in the store, because even with some of these carts, you'll find trace amounts of metals and whatnot that people are inhaling, and that's no bueno. That's a quick way to wreck your lungs and to really cause yourself some pain and harm. So, yeah, don't smoke out of a tinfoil can or aluminum
or
can
plastic
or
bottles.
Whatever. If you can,
don't
avoid it.
Don't use plastic bottles. That's probably not good. I've been there, done that. Definitely, don't do that.
Stick to glass. There's something to that.
Probably. The fact that it can't, it's not affected by the temperature of what you're using. Full reliable there. And I think just this, I mean, this is anecdotal also, technically, but we know many people who have been smoking weed their entire lives. And I don't think I know of anybody or have heard of anybody that has any negative health effects from that. Whether it be mental, lungs, really anything. If anything, I think those people who are, 70, 80, whatever, and they've smoked every day of their lives since like probably before they were 18, they seem a lot healthier to me than most other people their age. So again, purely anecdotal, but I think you'll find that there's not really a whole lot of side effects. I think actually the most unhealthy thing about my weed smoking habit is probably the butane.
Right.
Yeah, because that's definitely not good
I've been
for
using
you.
Hemwick again recently.
Yeah. I've got some in my house, but will I remember to take it out?
I wrapped it around my lighter, so it's like kind of like a grip for the lighter too.
Yeah.
I think you're onto something there. Yeah, so just another funny one. Does it really lower sperm counts? Have you ever heard of that one?
Highly doubt that. Actually, I think I've read the opposite.
No. Next question.
No, I think you're right. It's super high in me. They did find it was the opposite. So a lot of myths too. Shouts out to Doug Benson in the movie Super High in Me. A lot of these myths too. So yeah, and that just so going back to what you were talking about a little bit ago, Chris. What is all the hubbub around terpenes?
The hubbub. Well, I don't think there's necessarily a hubbub. I think there's a lack of education on the importance of terpenes.
It's not just hubbub.
No, sir. I think it's something that we and other places of business that operate in a similar manner should be doing more to educate their customers about, because that can greatly dictate their experience with the product and greatly determine which types of products they should be looking for. Typically, you're more like purpley kind of flower, that kind of lavendery kind of scent, for example. That would be more directly related to an indica, because it's used to help promote relaxation, sleep, and things of that nature. And just like we were saying before, with essential oils, like essential oils have different effects. Think of terpenes as the quote-unquote essential oils of your flower.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
And a lot of them are actually the same or similar.
Wow.
There's a difference between botanically derived terpenes and cannabis-derived terpenes. Botanically means it's just derived from anything that's not cannabis.
Like an eggplant, for example.
Or a mango, because myrcene is in mangoes. And you're supposed to, if you eat a mango or eat a bunch of mangoes and then like smoke weed, you're supposed to get higher or something. Because that's a terpene that is supposed to boost the effects of THC. So you can definitely use other oils in conjunction with your cannabis to promote full spectrum benefit. Some people actually mix lavender in with their flower, or there's lots of other herbs that they would mix in with their flower. Obviously, they have to be like smoke grade and not just edible grade.
Don't just.
They have to be like organically grown, and so don't just go get some lavender from wherever. But you can do that. You can smoke those things.
That is incredible. That again goes back to this shit's magic, man.
The knowledge ceiling for it is endless, absolutely endless. Yeah. So
and again, the mythology of just like the old heads I've learned from and smoke with and shit. Like a lot of them think it is a bunch of hubbub, but no, like that is mind blowing stuff.
And even people who have some like awareness of terpenes, it takes them a while for that concept like fully settle in, or for you to experience it and then keep on learning it. And like my experience with the banana cream cart, like I know that there's a difference between this cart and that cart, but yet it was still just that one experience that caught me off guard. I was like, what is why that happened.
A lot of the sativas I've liked, and I'm blanking on any other names, but they've all kind of had like a citrusy kind of quality to it.
That's also a thing.
And their bud formation tends to be a little more like that kind of like wiry, like hairy, whereas you tend to see more of a kind of like condensed bud when you're dealing with your indicas. Typically, not always, but
it's why some of the super intense growers will just like look at something, like they'll just look at bud and just like know like what strain it is without any label. Like I can tell the difference between our own products. Like if the little Sharpie like label gets worn off of one of the hemp bags. I can look at it and figure out what it is, but yeah, I'm not that good. I can't just like cold read a bud.
Yeah.
But some growers can do that.
That is incredible.
Just because they know the plants so well.
I don't doubt it, because going back to some things we talked about off air before, but just like the taste profiles and just like like over time, you I guess it's the terpenes you start to notice, which is the different taste and smell profiles over time. Like you're able to distinguish just certain notes that, like when you first start smoking, you don't pick up on any of that. Like,
and at some point, it's just but there's definitely a difference. It may or may not matter to you right now, but there's definitely a lot of difference.
Yeah. Well, man, this has been a fount of knowledge, and we touched on a lot of this stuff, but we still didn't even get into the nitty gritty on all this, because I'd love to know more about terpenes. I'd love to know more about just the complexities of the legalities specifically. Like, I'd like to get into more just like what restrictions to look out for, and like what to sort of help lobby about, because it's super important to me.
And constantly changing.
Yeah. So
everyone that is interested in the cannabis space or anything, just keep your ear to the ground for this coming year. There's going to be a lot of activity politically.
For
just
psilocybin also.
And you'd be surprised what a phone call or an email can actually accomplish. Reach out to your delegates, speak with them, like make this a face-to-face human problem so that they can see that there are other humans on this side of the issue that lives will be affected. It's going to be a hard year, but I think we're going to see some good things happen, and I'm hoping by halfway through the year that we'll have growers, processors, and plans for retail set up so that we can hit the ground running in 2024. So let's all hope for that. I hope the price of admission isn't too high to allow small businesses to enter. And we just got to keep advocating for this plant, man, because it changes lives, and I don't like seeing people suffer. So let's hope for the best, and hope that everyone that needs it can get the relief that they need.
Hell yeah. I couldn't have said it better. That's man, what a great note to leave on.
We could definitely flesh out each of those like little micro discussions and divide them into their whole own videos for sure.
Yeah. I'd love to do a spin-off with you guys where it's just this, like, and maybe even bring in other experts and like bring in like some visuals and
customers with anecdotes even.
Yes. Oh, that's a cool
idea. Because sometimes because I feel like your knowledge about the industry is probably a little bit more advanced than your typical like average person who's maybe kind of starting out right now. And I mean that's a lot of our customers are people who have ventured out to try to figure this out on their own, and it's kind of new to them. And I have to give people a lot of credit. I think we talked a lot about people not knowing stuff, but some people do come in knowing certain stuff works for them and certain stuff doesn't, and they just need like the blanks filled in somewhere in the middle. It really helps to have other perspectives around to help contribute to those discussions. So that might be one idea.
I love that. Well, again, thank you, Fair Dance Market. Thank you, Happy Skunk Room. Thank you, Sarah and Chris. Again, that's it for this discussion, this Cannabis Conversation on the Snide Show. Stay snide.
Hey, I got one more question.
Yeah.
Can I say fuck on this?
Oh, we forgot to do that.